You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and joining me as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vive. Squid, how are we keeping today?
We're doing okay, Mike, despite everything, and didn't win any lotteries the last 2 days or anything, so I'm still here.
Well, in that case, we better keep going. There's no free ride as of yet. But today we're going to change it up for the listeners out there. We're going to do, and we want to say this, we're going to do sort of the 21 game review of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This usually takes place around Thanksgiving under most normal circumstances. But these are times when most teams will take a reassessment of what they have, where they're at in the standings, what they need to change, and where they need to go going forward with their club. So we're going to offer our views on that today. Usually most people do that halfway before the season, but we're going to do it a couple of games early and get a bit of a head start on everybody, and they can do comparatives against our thoughts. So we'll see how it all plays out. Now, before we do start, though, a couple of things. One, we like to send a message out to our buddy Stevie Ludzik. He's still waiting for his liver transplant. He ran into some complications, has had a couple of procedures since then, and is now in recovery. We know he's a faithful follower of ours when he can listen, so he's listening to us. So, Ludzik, all the best to you. Get better, man. You can fight this, and we know you're going to win the battle.
Yeah, he's had it going for quite a while, and you know what? I mean, he's a strong individual, and you know he's had these liver issues since he was playing pro hockey, and it's just progressively gotten worse. But a little wrench was thrown into it when he went for the surgery, and then he had to get a stent put in and a few other things, and so. Yeah, he's hanging in there, and he's a battler. He will.
Yeah, we have all the faith in the world, and he's Ludzik Strong. And speaking of Ludzik Strong, I want to give a little bit for the Ludzik Foundation. They're offering a T-shirt, $25. You can order it at. Let me read the site. It's at the SteveLudzikFoundation.org. They're $25. Our good buddy Dan Lancione will look after you, and incidentally, I want to give a bit of a shout out to Danny and some of the other volunteers. You know him very well too, Squid.
Yep.
This is a guy who gives all his time, along with other volunteers, to help with this foundation. He's helped Deb and I on numerous occasions at our events. And a lot of this stuff wouldn't get done without the help of guys like Dan and some of the volunteers. So big shout out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every foundation like this needs people to come in and do that. And, they're no different. And, those things don't happen. Those T-shirts are pretty cool, by the way, too. They're pretty cool looking. And
well,
I'm gonna have to order a few. And
you gotta get off that wallet, Squid.
Pardon me?
Get off that wallet. $25. I got two coming here. Deb and I got two coming here to Florida. They're on their way. So I have them this week, and we're gonna post them when we get them. So everybody, that again is the SteveLudzikFoundation.org, $25. It's one round with one of your buddies. Buy a T-shirt. Okay, so there we'll leave it at that. And we'll keep you guys updated on Ludzik's progression as we go forward from here. But again, Ludzik, all the best to you, man. Keep it going. I've mentioned on a number of occasions, just on another note, about what an avid reader I am. But even through this pandemic, I've become even taken it to another level, Squid. I've just finished, and this one will be near and dear to you, The Life and Times of Johnny F. Bassett, maverick entrepreneur of North American sports. Now, you've heard me say on many occasions that I think he was an innovative sporting genius that was way ahead of his time. This book convinced me of that even more so. For those of you who are unaware, Johnny was one of the original franchise owners of the World Football League, the World Hockey Association, and USFL football, which is US Football League. All the leagues failed, but the interesting thing that all his teams, through his marketing and innovation, were all fairly successful, depending on really how you want to look at it. And they led to the merger of the WHA and the NHL, the WFL. Was another one that would have worked if they'd listened to him. The USFL ran into an owner Well, let's put it this way. If it was for one selfish and egotistical ways of one owner who shall remain nameless, Donald Trump, the league would have had a real chance to survive. And it's funny, his battles with, I mean, in the book here, the battles with the 45th president were legendary. And it's so funny that the mistakes and the bumbling that went on in the office of the Oval Office were happening 40 years ago when he was running the USFL. So Johnny spotted this guy, called him for what he was 40 years ago, even threatened to punch him out one time when he was abusing a lot of the other owners, which is not surprising, and making up stuff in the press. So I don't want to give the story away, but it's well worth it, and it's definitely worth a look. And two other things I'll point out. Number one, which I didn't know, I had figured he had an idea. He had a hand in this, but he actually offered Wayne Gretzky a contract when he was 16, coming out of the World Juniors in Montreal over breakfast. He watched him play against his son, John, when he was 12, had John Iaboni do a story on him, the first national story on Gretzky, and followed him right to the juniors. Offered him a contract, but his dad said you have to finish grade 11. Well, by the time the World Juniors were over and the season was over, Gretzky was now the guy. So there's some competition. The number got bigger, but he suggested to Nelson Skalbini that you sign him, and he did. And Paul Kent and other guys, he put him in front of all these guys because he couldn't throw his pay structure out of whack. So he offered them to those guys to help them sell their franchise, and he did. And it worked because he's always a business first guy and thought of the league ahead of himself. Now, I know you, Squid, come into this story a couple of years later through the Baby Bulls, and maybe you want to relay your dealings with Johnny.
Well, actually, it was the very next year, and like Johnny was bigger than life, and like I said, he was like it was as if Hugh Hefner walked into the room. I mean, you know, the way he dressed and the blonde hair, and good looking, you know, gentleman, and very, very nice man. And I got to tell you, he was a smart guy too, because I mean, anybody who could put a hockey team in Birmingham, Alabama back in the 70s and draw 12,000 people a game, you know, on a regular basis, sometimes more depending on the night and who you were playing. I mean, the guy was a genius, and also did some pretty good things in the USFL and the world football as well. So, you know, great for him. He was but he was just wow, I don't even know what words to describe. It's just, when he walked in the room, everybody just stopped and looked and watched as he walked by.
Well, you got to think, here's the other thing too. The 7 guys that he picked to play, every one of you made big careers in National Hockey League. So he had an eye for talent. Like, this guy was no slouch, just like going on a whim.
Well,
he actually had an eye for talent.
Think of the players he had before there, that Napier, Linsman, Langway, just to name a few. Wayne Dillon. I mean, the guys that he brought in there were darn good players, and all went on to have pretty successful NHL careers. So give him a lot of credit for recognizing talent, but more importantly, the way that he did things with his organizations, like to make them prominent in the cities in which they were in.
And I mean, I don't want to spoil the story for everybody, because it's definitely a book you want to read, folks. Please read it, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it. It's really, really. I was a groundbreaking guy as far as sports go, and he set the standard for the way we see the games today. And the other thing about it, he honored all his debts, he paid all his bills, and he's just a truer guy. Unfortunately, he was taken by cancer at a young age, and we didn't get the chance to see him. And all we can say is that when he was around in the 70s, if he'd been running the Leafs like it was laid out to be at one point, possibly with his grandfather or his father in charge of the Leafs before all the stuff happened, who knows how things may have turned out a little differently. But that's what we're here for. We're always here to guess and think and wonder. Now, speaking of which, this day in history, I always like to throw these at you. A small trade on February the 27th, 1989, saw Paul Lawless come from Vancouver in exchange for Peter DeBoer, who had been drafted by Toronto, never played a game in the NHL, and went and became a coach. Now you wonder, why'd you bring this up? I'll tell you. I said, I'll tell you why. This is for our Leaf fans out there. When I was on my journey following the Maple Leafs for all 89 games during the 2018-19 season, I sat down with Peter. And Peter told me the family's love affair at the Maple Leafs was so strong, it meant everything to the family, the mom and dad. When he got drafted in the 12th round by the Maple Leafs in the 88 draft out of Windsor, once the initial shock of being drafted so low got over him, he said to me, Mike, getting drafted in the 12th round by the Toronto Maple Leafs meant more to me than getting drafted in the 6th round by anybody else. And that shows you the impact that club had even on a guy like him. And on the same day, in 1996, another guy got traded that you may have heard of. We just mentioned him a couple minutes ago, Wayne Gotsky. He went to St. Louis from LA in exchange for, and I remember these guys, Craig Johnson, Patrice Tardif, Roman Vopat, a first-round draft pick in the 97 draft, which turned out to be Matt Zolik, and a fifth-round pick in 1996 turned out to be Peter Hogan. And Gretzky was immediately named captain of the Blues.
Wow.
So there you go. So there's your, so you learn something every day, and there's some more drivel for you that I like to throw you every week. Now, today's show is going to be centered on us assessing the Maple Leafs. Before we start, we want to let listeners know that Squid and I wrestle with this, because how critical can you be of a team in first place overall in the NHL after 21 games? But under the current environment, it's very difficult to measure how good all division leaders are, because they're only playing the same 6 or 7 teams every week. And all these experts, by the way, this kills me. All these experts saying the Leafs are playing in this weaker division. Well, I like them to qualify that for me, because last I checked, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg all had star players in their team. And Montreal was supposed to be the most improved team in the offseason with all these brilliant moves. And we saw what just happened there. So explain that to me. And secondly, the doormats of the National Hockey League last year, or one of the doormats, the LA Kings, are now the hottest team in the National Hockey League. And the other one's the Chicago Black. Yeah. And the other team, the Chicago Blackhawks, who their captain even criticized them in the offseason for the moves they made for weakening the team, and it isn't even playing. They're in the playoffs and a number 4 games over 500. So the whole point is nobody, even the experts, I'm sorry to criticize you guys. No, I'm not. But you guys are wrong. Nobody knows what we're dealing with. So we're going to look at this as almost, it's like a clean slate going into the playoffs, and we're going to have a look and see how things play out. So let's start from goal out. I'll throw this one at you, Squid. Frederik Andersen, grade him to date.
Well, I mean, you know what? Let me preface everything I'm going to say today by the fact that it's very, very difficult to kind of do this with some guys having only played 8, 9 games.
That's right.
Some guys a lot more. And the fact that they're not playing 82 games this year, and the divisions are different. So let me preface what I'm going to say about everybody by saying that it's all kind of thrown out of whack, as you mentioned earlier. You know, Frederik Andersen, you know, still 11-3-0-2, and goals against are, you know, they're not great. They're 2.69, which is, you know, decent, but the save percentage is what I kind of always look at with goalies, which is more important than anything else. And it's only at 905. And a guy like Freddie Andersen probably should live in around the 925, 930 range, somewhere in there, which is exactly where Michael Hutchettson is, believe it or not.
Yeah.
At 924 and 2.36 goals against. So, you know, and Jack Campbell, 2 goals against average, 923 save percentage. But they haven't played as many games. I mean, you know, I mean, you can look at the numbers all you want, but when you've only played 3 games and 2 games, and the other guy has played like,
Well, he's played the rest, 16.
16 games, yeah. And 1-3 and Campbell 2. So, I mean, it's very, very difficult to compare them. But I would say that Frederik Andersen has got to get his save percentage up probably by about, I would say, 25%. If the Leafs are going to go as far as they hope to.
Yep. Well, in my grading, I would go as this. I say, speaking of Anderson, and I'm using the same sort of criteria as you, it's tough. The sample size is small for some of the guys, so you're going to have to bear with us and just view what we're looking at. But he's been good, but not great. Most nights making the saves he's supposed to, which is a good thing. Like to see a little more rebound control out of him and not be down as much as the rushers enter the zone because everybody seems to shoot high in him. And I've given him a B plus so far for the first part of this season. As far as Jack Campbell goes, it's very difficult after 2 games. He won both his games. He's done his job. He's very confident and very competent backup. And more importantly, the team has a lot of confidence in him. You can see they play their game when he's there and they're not running around scrambling. And I've given him a soft B because of the fact that, we've only seen him in 2 games. And as far as Hutch goes, Michael Hutchettson, I'd have to say under the conditions, he's taken that. He's done a very good job because here's a guy, don't forget, went out on kind of weak terms last year, not doing his job. There was a little bit of panic when he would come in the net. You could see the way the players played a different type game to keep shots away from the goal. He was fighting the puck a lot more last year. He seems to be getting more confidence, obviously, the more he's played with playing 3 in a row now. And he doesn't seem to be as much panic mode near to the team. And they responded very well against Calgary Monday night. And as I said, I don't see him fighting the puck as much. You know what? He's done a decent job, and I'm going to give him a B.
Yeah, I would say B plus, B plus for the goaltending trio, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
I would say would be what I would grade them at as well.
Yeah, I'd be fair. So moving on to our defense now, we'll start up with Zach Bogosian. And I'll go first in this one to this time. Him as expected. He's playing as expected. He doesn't panic with the puck. He does a good job. He's been a steady influence on the back end. He's given them what they want. I give him a B.
Yeah, I think probably a B would be my grade as well. I mean, he hasn't done anything spectacular, hasn't been sensational offensively or anything. He's done a pretty good job defensively, but come in and kind of solidified the whole defense.
Mm-hmm.
When they brought them all in together, Brody and him and Muzzin was healthy, it kind of solidified everything, and he was just another part of that. So I would have to say a B for him as well.
So let's go to TJ Brody. Your assessment of him so far.
I would, with Brody, I would probably be more inclined to give him a B plus. I think he's been pretty steady back there, and he's been consistent. He hasn't had like 2 or 3 bad games in a row and then 2 good ones, and then he's been pretty consistent from day one right through, and he's played all 21 games. So I would have to give him a pretty solid B plus.
Yeah, I mean, I marked him as a B, and I did that because I'm being a little harder on the defensemen at points because you want them to be, but they have uptick, no question. But as far as my grading goes, it took them a little bit to get adjusted, which is not unexpected coming to a new team and new system and all that. And they didn't have the exhibition season they normally would have. But he's given Morgan a little bit more room on the ice. He's fitting his role in very well. And he seems to fit into the transition has gone very smoothly. So I give him a solid B.
Why are you being so hard on the defense, Mike? I mean, it's hard for them when the forwards are always up the ice, for those. Come on, give them a break.
That's true too. I'm being nice. A B is a B. God, geez, the only B I had in school was B in the detention room tomorrow morning at 8:00. That's what I would get. So, believe me, that's a pretty good mark. So let's move on to Travis Dermot. Now, this may be where I'm getting a little bit harder. Here's the question about Travis Dermot. Is he the player they have? Is there room to grow into his role? And I'll throw this one at you because you know this guy. Now, before you answer, let me finish. Reminds me of Todd Gill. Todd Gill was a player who took a number of years to develop as a solid NHL defenseman. Defensemen usually take longer, especially the young ones. He plays spotty at times. If he takes a deep breath sometime before he makes a play, he makes a great outlet pass. Sometimes gets over anxious with the puck, a little aggressive on the pinch. all those type of things. But when they take back and take a step back, and that just comes with experience, they become much better players. My personal feeling is I think that's the type of player that Dermot will become. So I marked him as a C plus to date so far.
I think I'd agree with you on the grade. And I mean, fingers crossed that he's one of those guys that is taking a little bit longer than normal. But, you know, there's some nights where I look at it and I think, you know, hey, this kid's got it. You know, I mean, he can move, he can make plays. And then there's other nights where it's like, whoa, like send him to the American League and let him play a little bit down there. So, you know, I mean, it's hopefully one of those guys that by the time he's 25, 26 years old, that, you know, he's going to become a regular, you know, steady defenseman in the National Hockey League.
Well, again, as you know yourself, coming from the game, when you come from junior to the pros, the game eventually slows down a little bit for you so you can make that play. But initially, it's just a blur, and it takes time to adjust.
But
I think that's the space he's in.
He did spend a little time in the American Hockey League as well.
Correct.
So, which I think is a good maturation period for guys that are coming out of junior or college hockey before jumping right into the NHL. Sometimes a little stop in the American League is not a bad thing.
Well, we're going to come up to a couple that we're going to talk about that. Now, the next guy is a case in point that a couple of years ago he couldn't get out of the press box, and here he is now, Justin Holl. I'll take this one. Well, I'll go. Oh, actually, go with this one first.
You know what? I give Holl an A. I think he's been outstanding this year. You know, I think he's done probably everything they've asked him to do. He's come in and done a real steady job defensively. He lugs the puck really well. I love the way he's played, and you know, he's got 8 points in 21 games, and he's also I know he's a -1, but you know, I don't always look at plus minus, and but I think he's played extremely well. So he would be B plus A in that range somewhere in there for me, anyway.
Well, my assessment of his game so far is he's developing into an all-round solid backliner. So there's the one line for it. He's more confident handling the puck. He's hanging on to it split second longer, which is I'm referring to that game slowing down a little bit for the players to get more experience. He's making smart plays. He's getting caught occasionally being a little bit aggressive, but that's to be expected. I like the fact he hanging on the puck a little longer, and he's starting to use that big frame of his the right way. He doesn't have to run everybody out of the building, get in somebody's way, and he's doing a lot more of that this year, and he's being way more effective. I graded him a B+. Yeah. Our next player is an interesting topic. Mikko Lehtinen. And I'll go on this one. Here we go. Just what you just mentioned 2 players ago. Proof that time is required to develop. Every outing, he's getting better. A 20-game stint with the Marlies would do the world of good for this guy. Slowly, he's starting to adapt to the Leafs style of play, to the NHL style of play, and his skills are starting to come out a little bit. Now, he should be playing for the Marlies, but injuries are keeping him in the lineup. I've graded him a C+ because he got off to a bit of a slow start, but you can see you can see why the Leafs were interested in him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with your grade and everything else, but I still think, well, as you said, with injuries and the pandemic and everything else, I mean, what other choices do they have but to keep him in Toronto instead of him playing for the Marlies? And I mean, under normal circumstances, my guess is he'd be playing in the American Hockey League for the first half of the season and see how things go, and then perhaps he'd get called up and finish the year with the Leafs. But unfortunately, because of everything that's going on, they've been forced to keep him. But in saying that, you know, I think he's coming along. He's getting a little bit more comfortable playing in the league, and you can see it every game. It seems like he gets a little bit more comfortable. Unfortunately, when everybody's healthy, he usually finds himself out of the lineup. And, you know, you want him sitting around not playing when everybody gets healthy. And the question for me would be no, or the answer I say would be no. Get him playing, get him in the American League and playing once everybody gets healthy, and let him kind of get his legs with the North American style down there.
Agree. Jake Muzzin, you take this one first.
Well, Jake Muzzin, to me, I would say I give him an A because I think he's been very, very good. He's got 12 points in 19 games, which is and a +6, which Muzzin having that many points, 12 points in 19 games is really not what anybody would look at him and say, oh yeah, he's going to put up, that many points. No, he's more known for his hard hitting defensive play. And I think without him, you notice a big hole back there on the defensive side of things, at least for sure.
Well, for him, when he's mucking it up and playing with an edge, that's when he's most effective. And sometimes he tries to do a little too much, but the opposing forwards, I can tell you, they know when he's on the ice. And that's a good thing for the Leafs. He seems to be picking better times to join the rush. And the only knock on him, you would have to say, and it's not his fault, is he needs to stay healthy. He just seems to have these unfortunate mishaps, but it's the way he plays the game. It's not to be unexpected. I graded him a B+. Next, we'll come to the guy, Morgan Reilly. Well, I guess it'll be me. This is mine to go first with. He had a slow start, but his game is rounded back to form. His skating is back to where it was. And I thought at the beginning, there was an adjustment with Brody and the style of play they were trying to accomplish, but he was a little bit hesitant to move with the puck. But now he seems to be here's a guy who's been in the league a number of years now. He's letting the game come to him, but he's more aware who he's with on the ice, it appears, and he's not just rushing every chance he gets. He's picking the right spots. He's getting himself open, and Brody has given him that next level for him, and he seems to be getting more comfortable as the games go along to use that to his advantage, and his game is upticking almost every game. I've given him an A.
Exactly what I gave him, an A and 16 points. The guy he's their best defenseman, all-around defenseman. He's the guy that makes a power play go, the guy that gets the puck up the ice. I mean, his skating ability is off the charts. And, what more can I say? He's an A.
That's right. And that's right. And again, that's foreign language to me, but A, it's an A. Now we'll move to the forwards. Alexander Barabanov.
Okay, hold on. Before we start with the forwards, let me start by saying there's two players that have around 1/3 of the entire team's amount of goals. I mean, if you look around the whole league, how many teams have two players that have 1/3 of their goals for the season so far?
Probably Boston.
Maybe. Well, that'd be close, but I don't know, man. I mean, it's like Marner and Matthews have 27 of their 74 goals for. Like, that's pretty scary when you think about it. That means we're going to have to dissect this pretty good.
Well, we are, but that'll come in the summary. That'll be coming in the summary, okay? Because we got lots to talk about. So, Barabanov.
Should be playing in the American League. I don't even give him a grade because I just don't think he's ready to play in the National Hockey League right now. And I think he should be playing with the Marlies.
Well, I wrote C. Lettinen. Same scenario. Best game was Monday night against Calgary. He was outstanding. It was almost like he just stepped back and said, let my skills, they got me here, use them. I mean, he made that great between the leg pass and moved to himself and made a great little play there. That's the player the Leafs are looking for. But again, 20 games with in the American Hockey League with the Marlies would do him the world of good. And again, I did give him a C, but that was with a soft C because really he hasn't been given a fair chance because he needs to adapt and he needs to go and play with the Marlies. Travis Boyd.
He's only played 9 games, and to me.
But he's playing a couple minutes a night. You can't
he's not
assess
playing
that.
a whole. You're right. I would have to say C, but not. It's not his fault. I think
no,
he should be playing in the American Hockey League. to start the year to get, climatized into everything
That's
and
right.
then call him up when he's ready.
Travis Boyd.
Travis Boyd, actually, he's been pretty good. 6 points. He's only played 13 games. Getting used a little bit more now. Actually, on the power play last night a couple of times. And I would have to give him probably a good solid B, I think, for what he's done with the amount of ice time he's got and the amount of games he's played. As I said, 13 out of 21. So, you know what? I give him a good solid B for me.
Well, I mean, he's been a pleasant surprise. He's winning battles in the corners. He's hard on the puck, stands in front of the net. He drives the net. He's doing all that's asked of him. The only thing he's not getting is proper ice time. He deserves to play more. And we'll talk about that in the summary because I have a couple of thoughts on that. I gave him a C+. Pierre Engvall, off to a slow start. Need more out of him. This guy's a big-bodied player, good skater, decent hands. He's got reach. He needs to stop playing in fear, meaning that he has to stop worrying about making mistakes that could worrying that he's going to end up in the stands with making a mistake. And that's what he looks like. The puck is like a grenade on his stick at times. And what he has to do is got to loosen up and play his game like he did when he was first brought up last year. And if he doesn't get back to that, he's only going to hurt himself. He's got to take back and get a better focus on himself. I gave him a D.
Yeah, I would probably look at D+ for me, and mainly because D+ to a C, and the only reason for the upgrade a little bit is because of his penalty killing. And he's been exceptional in the penalty kill and getting some shorthanded opportunities. But again, I can't say this enough that, a lot of these guys we're talking about, the club needs more out of them. They need more output. They need more offense. They need more of everything from these guys. And if they don't get it, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Well, that's again, we're going to talk about that in the summary, but that's definitely what we're talking about moving forward if they do advance. And, it's looking like hopefully they will. Zach Hyman?
Well, Zach Hyman, he keeps doing it year after year, works his tail off, gets in. He's usually the first guy in on the fourth check. He plays a good defensive zone game. He kills penalties. I don't know what more you can say. He's got 11 points and a +10 in 19 games. Zach Hyman, I would give an A for sure.
Well, I graded him with as a heart and souler. He makes players around him a lot better because of the fact he's a puck hound. He comes back. He's as strong in his own end as he is in the offensive end. He's noticed when he's not in the lineup. It's very noticeable. I gave him an A. I actually gave him an A+. Alexander Kerfoot. I'll take this one to start off. A great skater, great chasing pucks down, decent on the penalty kill. He's miscast as a third line center, I believe. If he's placed center, he should be on the fourth line. As a checker, energy guy only. He's hesitant with the puck when he goes to move it. That's not a spot that a third line center should have that deficiency in his game. But he's an energy guy. I gave him a C+, by the way, but I just think that he helps energize lines, but he got to take the pressure off him playing that middle spot in the third line.
Yeah, you know what? I if anything, I would like to see them maybe try him on left wing, maybe on the second line a little bit or something. Get him in the game a little bit more. Get him into the flow of things a little bit more. I mean, even on the third line, yeah. I mean, it's a 4-line game pretty much now for every team in the league, but he seems to get, the last part of the ice time and being the third line centerman. I would prefer to see him move up maybe on the left side and get a little bit more ice time because I think he's capable of doing a little bit more than what he's done. I mean, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points, not bad, but I'd give him a C+ probably because I think he's a guy that can fly. He's fast. He's got good hands, but he doesn't get enough ice time, quality ice time with the best players to show that.
Well, the next two, I think we could just send them home. Their parents don't even have to come to parent night. Okay, for the next two, Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, both on the honor roll. All they have to do is come pick up their certificate at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those two guys, give them an A plus plus. Like if it was a test, it would be 100 out of 100. You know, because those guys have done everything that you've expected from them this year. And those are the two guys that I said have a third of the team's goals. Yeah. Now, of course, one guy's got 18, so that puts it up. But the other guy's got 9. He's second on the team in goals. But when two guys have a third of your team's productivity offensively, you know, that becomes a problem if that continues. Now, let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope that we start getting more secondary scoring. But if we don't, and this trend continues, that's going to pose a problem down the road. So give them their A plus plus and see you later.
Yeah, and they didn't need to leave an apple on the teacher's desk. Okay, they got that mark on their own. Ilya Mikheyev, I'll take this one. As the saying goes, if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. He may be the Leafs' hardest working forward, with all due respect to Zach Hyman. He's a penalty-killing scoring threat. He's hard on the puck, drives the net, great skater, all the tools to have a significant role. He just can't find the back of the net. And he eventually will if he keeps at it. They stay with him, which I can't see they won't. I gave him a B+. This guy's got to play to let him go. He's going to work out eventually.
Well, yeah, I mean, I give him a solid B+ because he does so many good things. He, you know, the penalty killing on the forecheck, carrying the puck. He's got good hands, good vision. The bottom line is he's not a goal scorer, you know, and yeah, would we like a little bit more offense from him? Of course, but he does get an awful lot of really good opportunities. He's just got to learn how to put the puck in the net, and if he can ever do that, gosh knows what the hell he's capable of doing, because he gets so many great opportunities because of his hard work, his big size, and his ability to get away from people.
Well, remember, he's one of these guys that's supposed to replace 40 goals that we basically gave up with Kapanen and Johnson. So he does have to start finding the back of the net to earn his keep. But I think he does other things that are sort of amending that for the current time or situation he's in. If he, as you say, if he can ever find the back of the net, he'll be a dynamite player. Okay.
Well, the thing is, with him, like a few of the other guys on the team too. I mean, it's okay if you have 3-4 guys up front that do what he does and what Hyman does, and that they don't score a whole lot of goals. But you can't have any more than that. You can't have 6, 7, 8 guys in that situation that are hardworking guys but can't score. So, but hopefully he'll come around and start putting it in the net. But from what I've seen in 2 years that I've been watching him, I don't think he's a goal scorer. And
well, that brings us to the next guy.
I don't think he ever will be.
Well, that brings us to the next guy that just fits that point you just mentioned. The most polarizing Maple Leaf forward, and number 88, Reilly Kneelander. Now, last night or Monday night, he was the star of the show. Mind you, it was his guy that scored the initial goal, so he made up for it on the tire and won in overtime. And remember, there's only 3 guys in the ice, so he drove the net. They need more of him. They need more of him like they did Monday night. Everybody knows that. He knows that. The players know it. He's put pressure on himself. He needs to get his game up a couple notches, and I think he's miscast with John Tavares. Just plain and simple. He shouldn't be playing with him, and I gave him a C.
Well, I would give him probably a C as well, and I don't think he's miscast with anybody on this team. I think he's miscast on this team, period. That's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't have given him the money that they gave him. And if I was making the decisions, I think I'd be actively trying to move him to improve some other parts of the hockey club, perhaps. Like you can look at it. I mean, everybody, you look at the numbers: 7 goals, 9 assists, 16 points in 21 games. But don't forget, 4 of those goals were in 2 games. He got 2 in the first game of the season, and he got 2 last night. He's been very, very inconsistent, and he's a very big-time perimeter player that when playoffs roll around, he usually disappears. And, That's just my personal opinion of him. If I was in charge, I'd be doing everything I could to move him for something that could help us somewhere else.
Wayne Simmons, a hometown
Well,
guy, motivated to play for the Leafs, was rounding into form, well liked by the players you can see, knows his role, which is a very important thing. You know, you played the games, you know, the players sometimes don't accept that challenge when they come into the league after being stars all their lives. He's going to be a factor when he comes back, hopefully, which should be no reason that he won't be have the same motivation and be the same type of player. He could be a top 6 player if he wants it. And the way he was playing before he got hurt his hand, he wants it. I gave him a B+.
yeah, I got the exact same grade myself, and for him, and I mean, I think where his value is really going to come out is down the latter stages of the season and then into the playoffs. And let's not kid ourselves. This team's going to make the playoffs. They may have home ice throughout the entire playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That is where you're going to see Wayne Simmons at his best, is down the stretch when they're fighting for position in the playoffs and in the playoffs. I think that's because that's the type of player he is. And not that he hasn't played well so far, but again, there's another guy who needs to stay healthy. We can't afford to have him, missing 11 games out of the first 21.
Well, and the other thing too is I'll bring it up in a summary is the fact that Anderson from Calgary, the defenseman, he was taking his liberties with Matthews last night and ran him into the boards after the short breakaway he had. Not going to get away with that with a guy like Simmons on the ice. And then he just was trying to manhandle Matthews every chance he got. So to me, you got to have that little bit of an edge out to let these guys know you're going to be accountable and you're going to be on notice. If you're going to play like that, you're going to get it back. There's nobody in the bench right now that's capable of doing that. But when Simmons comes back, there is that player that will send that element of notice. So that's where his role will really come in.
I agree with you on that. I thought Austin handled him pretty darn good last night, to be quite honest with you, in front of the net.
But he can't get caught up with those guys. He can't get caught up in that nonsense with those guys. Like, he's got to give them a shot back and stuff like that. They're going to come after him, and he's got to get used to it. And it brings me to the next guy, Johnny Tavares. He could be the second or third hardest working guy on the team, but he can't find the back of the net. He needs new line mates, it appears to me. He cannot be doing all the heavy lifting and getting pounded like he is, because he's going to have nothing left by the end of the season. And he's too good a player to not start scoring. I gave him a B for the effort he's making. And again, he's the type of guy, you're going to look at his points. There's almost a point a game average for him, which he has since the day he arrived here. But there's more to give, but they got to give him a better cast of characters to play with.
Exactly. And I gave him a B+ because of his work ethic and the way he's getting abused in front of the net and so on. And, he doesn't have the guys like he did before to go in and get the puck and then let him do his magic. And a lot of times he'd be the first guy in the puck, get it to someone else and make plays. But without two lines mates, so Simmons comes back and he's healthy and playing the way he's capable of, maybe on the right side with Tavares, maybe you put Kerfoot up there instead of wasting him on the third line. And maybe that connect. I don't know. I don't know what the right combination is, but a guy like Simmons would be perfect on his right side. And then another good left winger on the left side. But because Johnny can't do it all by himself on that line.
Well, and where he's most effective is when guys are going to the net and he has nobody in his line that goes to the net. And so the problem is, and it cuts the ice off for him. And it's a shorter ice surface to begin with already with a player of his ability. They're going to watch him closely. He's got even less room to move, and they're on him because they know there's nobody going to that dirty spot, and they just have to shut him down because Nylander's circling around the perimeter of the rink, and they don't have to worry. No, it's the way it is. It's the type of player he is. You can't knock him because that's the type of player he is. So and it brings us to the guy who's playing.
He's a guy with high-end skill, but doesn't like to play. I mean, he was in front of the net when he scored that goal last night, which there was 10 guys in front of the net. He wasn't the only one, but for the most part, he's a perimeter player. And if you're not going to go into those areas where, you look at Matthews last night in front of the net, taking a beating and giving it back and wanting to score a goal in those dirty areas. And, that's what it's going to take for a guy like Kneelander to be a better player. But I don't see that happening. So
Jimmy Vesey.
Johnny Vesey? VC?
No, Jimmy Vesey. Well, I'll say a disappointment. I can't believe the ice time he's getting. He was on the power play last night. So I boggles my mind on that one. Yeah. He's been given so much room, so much rope, and he hasn't taken advantage of any of it. Maybe it's just bad luck. I don't know what it is, what they're seeing in him, but I suspect once the team gets back to full strength, he'll be watching the games from the stands. I gave him a D.
I think there's a pretty darn good chance. I had him at C-, just trying to be nice to these guys. He worked. He's got good speed and hands, but again, I just don't know if he's a full-time good NHL hockey player. And he hasn't proven to me so far in his career that he is. So, you can't get the ice time and the opportunities that he's gotten and have 2 goals and 1 assist in 21 games. And then you're also a -5 on top of that. I'm sorry. I just don't see that as a guy that warrants getting more ice time.
Well, he's been invisible most nights. You don't even know he's on the ice. You have to check the lineup to see if he's even there. So, it speaks for itself. And
he's also gotten quite a bit of power play tonight, on top of his even strength. So, you look at that and you go, well, obviously he's not taking advantage of the ice time he's getting and the opportunities because he hasn't done anything. And, that's.
Well, let's move to the next guy then. Let's go to the bench boss, the guy making all the decisions, Sheldon Keefe. Assessment of him so far to date.
Well, I haven't talked to him, so you know what? He's in first place in the whole entire NHL. So
it's tough to criticize.
I give him an A+. Whatever he's done has kept this team from, first of all, from losing 2 in a row. I don't believe they have all year. And and they're first overall in the entire league. So whatever he's doing is working. And I think bringing Malhotra in as one of the assistants has really helped him a lot too. Because here's a guy that played in the National Hockey League for quite a few years and knows what it's like. And, because before they had a whole coaching staff, none of whom played in the National Hockey League. And I'm not saying that you have to be a good coach, but it certainly helps to have 1 or 2 guys on your staff that played in the league and know what it takes in order to win. But I think he's done a great job.
Yeah, it's tough to. I think he's done a decent job, and there's been a couple of head scratchers moves, but it's tough to nitpick when your team's in first overall in standings. But just again, the power play, which was tops in the league, they had a bad game Monday night. They come Wednesday night and he switches the whole thing up and stacks the lineup again, which didn't work last year and took away that grit from in front of that. I don't understand that reasoning. I don't understand why he's stuck with Vesey. So, and again, we don't know everything that's going on because, as you said, we haven't spoken to them. So there may be some other factors that are involved in all these decision making. But why he's stuck with Vesey so long and he had him playing in the power play, why he doesn't spot that. One thing I think he does exceptionally well is he adjusts to the flow of the game with his bench movement and his player movement. He does do an exceptional job of that. When he senses a player's on, he seems to have that right tick to move, like last night in the overtime when he switched up Marner and Kneelander with Tavares and Matthews. And it worked, right away to throw in a little bit off spin to the defensive side for Calgary. But, there's just a couple of things, you're wondering again, why he isn't giving Spezza more ice time as an example. Go with him when he's going hot and let him play. And there's just a few other things, but overall, I gave him an A because, his team's in first place. He's got them playing well. It's hard to criticize the guys, but again, we don't know. It's not comparing apples to apples because, again, they're playing the 6 same teams all the time.
Yeah. Well, so is everybody else in the league. I mean,
That's
they're
right.
all playing their own divisions, and but I don't know. I think you're right. There's a few questionable things, like you say, Spezza. Maybe he should be moved up to the third line, and Kerfoot sent back down to the fourth line. Vesey, however you pronounce it, put him on the fourth line, or you know, sometimes some of the moves you look at them and you shake your head and go, well, like why, but again, we're not there. We're not inside, and we don't know what's going on. We don't know who's banged up a little bit, who's not, that sort of thing. And the coach has to make those decisions. And I think so far, overall, you got to give him credit for making some pretty darn good decisions along the way.
So let me throw this at you in the summary. So here's a couple of things I've come up with. I mean, I think that one of the things that does work now, there's Thornton is got to be in this equation somewhere, because you have to play him, as we've talked about, because you're bringing in the veteran, and he's matched up well, and he has been a very pleasant surprise so far. But Matthews needs that full-time gritty winger, meaning Zach Hyman has to play with those two guys full-time. I don't think that just should change at all. You want to slip Thornton in there occasionally, you can, and move it around, because he does move guys around, as we've talked about. I think John Tavares should be playing with Mikheyev, and Travis Boyd should be given a shot up there to play with him. They both go to the corners. They both chase pucks down. They're both hard on the puck. Those are the type of guys that Tavares has played with his whole life. Those are the guys that he's made names of as the careers have gone on. As I mentioned last week, Matt Molson, just go and ask him what he thinks. That third line, I think then you've got to move Spez in that third spot for a while and give him a shot to play there. Let him have a shot with Willie and see if Willie can work with him, maybe, because, he is more of a forechecker, Spez, and going after the puck like that, and maybe that will help Kneelander. On the other side, it's anybody's guess whether it's going to be Thornton for a while. When Simmons comes back, you got to find a spot for him. But what you're dealing with currently, you would go with that. And then the fourth line, you're going to have Kerfoot, maybe even put Kerfoot on the wing with Spez and take that center pressure off of him. And on the fourth line, you've got a mixture of the rest. And I would like to see a guy like Kenny Agostino, who played for New Jersey and is a National Hockey League level player, who's playing very well for the Marlies for the last 2 years. I know there's a difference, but give him a shot. Let him come up and play, because maybe that's the type of grit you can see that, maybe it can be the Engvall from last year that came up and wowed everybody for a while. And Adam Brooks has got to get a shot to play. Patan can fill that role for us. So they got lots of depth to use. You can tinker with on that fourth line. And, Barbanoff, we're assuming that he's probably going to get sent down to play for Marlies for a little bit when the opportunity arises. But in the meantime, he's going to get fit in line, but he will get a spot there eventually. But the top six, I would like to see shaken up that way.
Yeah, they probably have 4 or 5 guys in the American League that are probably going to get up here at some point this year, I would think, and get an opportunity to play. Like you say, Agostino and a few guys like that are veteran guys that have been around for a while, have played a little bit in the NHL, some in the American League. There's a lot of those guys down there, and I'm pretty sure that probably some of them are going to get an opportunity. And, you hope that they work out, but there's just the chemistry has to be right on every line too. I mean, right now, I don't know what it is with me, but my thinking is you cannot take Zach Hyman off a line with Marner and Matthews, because they seem to mesh so well together. So why break up something that's working extremely well by putting Thornton? Well, now Thornton has played with them in the 9 games that he's played. He's played the majority of the time with those two, but I just think Zach Hyman's a better fit there right now.
Agree with you. And I think that's one of the things, hopefully down the road. Listen, I'm not saying that Thornton shouldn't play him on the power play, because he's still, the guy, 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. I mean, he knows how to play the game. Okay. Yeah. So he's not going to, he hasn't forgot how to play hockey overnight because he's gotten a couple of years older, but he's a little bit slower. But when the puck comes, he still knows what to do with it. And he's going to make good passes and he's going to make good decisions. He's still going to do that. But you can't have, I found, as we talked about before, the first 4 or 5 games, you found that, Matthews and Marner, they were looking for him all the time. And he was getting in their way, actually, because they circle around and they're moving. And that's when they're most effective. And that's where Hyman comes in, because Hyman chases the puck down and Hyman will go to the front of the net while those two are doing their magic around the around the players, the opposing guys. And that's what opens things up. And because eventually what happens, it gets moving so fast, they take their eye off 34 for 1 second, and then it's on the back of the net, and they're going back to center ice for a face-off. So
I would agree. That would be the only line, Mike, that I would not tinker with. I would keep those three together.
Yeah.
Come hell or high water, it wouldn't change for me. Other than that, I would start looking for other combinations amongst the other 9 forwards, but I would not even touch that line because they play so well together.
Agreed. Well, there's our assessment, folks. We've come to the end. We've got a summary. Any final thoughts before we let these guys go? And they can send us their thoughts on what we're thinking. I'm sure there'll be some kickback.
I like the fact that they're in first place, not only in the division, but first place in the entire league. And again, it's kind of a weird season where, they're not in their regular division where you've got some pretty strong teams, better defensive teams than some of them that are in their division right now. But some of the teams that are in their division that are in other divisions are benefiting from that as well. So, this year. So, who knows? We could see Boston, Tampa, Toronto, and somebody out in the West in the Final Four, in the semifinals. Exactly. And, that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be great. Well, we'll definitely watch with some real interest coming up tonight. You'll be seeing one of the games that everybody is looking for is a marquee game with Edmonton playing Toronto and McDavid Matthews going head to head. So we'll see how that one all plays out. So guys, we want to thank you again for listening and tuning in as always. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and where you listen to most of your podcasts, we're available. We will be coming at you next week with another new guest. You won't have to listen to us for the whole time again. We will spare you that sort of pain. So again, great talking to you guys. Look forward to having you guys next week. We'll talk to you then.